As protests against Agnipath, the dramatic, disruptive new recruitment policy for the Indian military, continue to grow with a Bandh in Bihar, the government has announced a set of new concessions. But will this be enough to stem the anger? That's the question we're asking this evening. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. Let's take you through the key developments of this unfolding, possibly national security challenge. Trains are being burnt, buses are being torched, highways are being blocked as young men take to the streets. There are hundreds of thousands of them who are hoping to join the military. The government has responded with a slew of concessions, announcing a 10% reservation in the CAPF, that's the Central Armed Police Force, the Assam Rifles, as well as in defense PSUs. The opposition is also upping the ante, asking the government to hold this policy in abeyance. The government was clearly not prepared for this backlash. The chiefs have gone on record as much to say so, but will the government step back or review more provisions of this contentious new recruitment policy? That's the focus of our broadcast this evening, and let's introduce our very distinguished panel. Even our political voices on the panel today are all people with a link to the military, and let me introduce them one by one. Brigadier Anil Gupta is a leader of the BJP from Jammu, obviously a former army officer as well. Welcome to the program, sir. We're joined by Manvendra Singh. Manvendra Singh is a leader with the Congress Party. He has been an officer in the Territorial Army. Welcome to the program, Manvendra. Joining us is General D.S. Huda, who has, of course, been a former Northern Army commander. Welcome to the program, sir. Also joining us is General Kulkarni. General Kulkarni has been the Director General of the Infantry in the Indian Army. A very warm welcome. And Captain Shalini Singh, formerly in the military and now with the Aam Aadmi Party, is with us as well. Thank you very much, everybody. And like I said, we've seen a slew of concessions, the most important one of them being a 10% reservation for the Agniveers, as they're called, the jawans who come in under this 4-year scheme and then have to go out, except for 25% of them. They will now be eligible for a 10% quota in the CAPF, the Assam Rifles, as well as in the defense PSUs. And you are seeing some of those key concessions there on your screen. The CAPF and the Assam Rifles, remember, this will be in addition to the quota for ex-servicemen. But the vacancies, currently over 70,000 in the CAPF, raise their own questions. There's also going to be a 3-year relaxation, the upper age limit for Agniveers in the CAPF and the Assam Rifles. So you are seeing these announcements coming from both Amit Shah as Home Minister and Rajnath Singh as the Defense Minister today. There will be a 5-year relaxation to the upper age limit for Agniveer recruitment. Another concession. So already you can see that from the first day that this policy was announced, there are tweaks and changes that are being brought in. And as I mentioned, 10% reservation in the Coast Guard, in 16 defense PSUs as well. Is this enough? Is this enough to address the disquiet on the streets, but also the disquiet within the military community, many of whom are arguing that the ethos and the combat effectiveness of the military could be damaged? General Huda, I'd like to start with you. Your thoughts, sir.
So, Barkha, just like any other scheme, and as you said, this is a fairly major and significant change to how recruitment would take place, and the permanence that was there within the military community and among the soldiers. Now you're having, temporary recruitment. I don't know whether the final mix is going to be 50-50, as some people are saying, or it's going to be 75-25 between Agniveers and permanent soldiers. So there are some advantages that have been given out by the government. Advantages like average age is going to come down. And although the government is not saying it, Barkha, there is going to be a significant saving in salary and pension, not immediately, but at a subsequent stage. Although the government is saying this is not about money. That will go into a modernization of the military, which was absolutely essential and required. Having said that, there are challenges. And there are genuine concerns whether morale and motivation level of people coming for only 4 years is going to be similar to that which was there among the permanent sort of soldiers. Is the 6-month training period sufficient to actually train soldiers who could, some of them, being pitched into life and death situations immediately after 6 months. These are concerns and questions that you talked about, the ethos and character of the military. These are genuine concerns that also need to be addressed. Now, these are challenges that the military is saying that they are cognizant of this and that we will look into all these aspects. But these are not concerns that can be sort of wished away and should not be wished away, because you have to accept that there are challenges in order to be able to tackle them. Barkha.
Yeah, but General Huda, before I open this up, the challenge is, yes, of course, reducing the military pension bill is the unsaid sort of subtext to this entire conversation. But what concerns you the most? First, we're seeing these horrific images from across the country, and let's bring up some of these images. We've seen trains torched. We've seen clashes with the police. We have seen highways blocked in Bihar in 12 different places. The internet lines have had to be snapped. And of course, this violence is unconscionable. But General Huda, I was speaking minutes ago to some young men who had qualified to be airmen to join the Air Force. And they said they cleared every exam. They thought that they were just going to get their joining letter. And they're absolutely shocked. They feel cheated. The word they used was, we've been given a lollipop. Do you think that there has been a fairness to the young aspirants who were expected to be recruited for full time in the normal way, General Huda?
So, obviously there is angst because, as you said, a very large number of people had gone through most of the selection process, and that angst and anger is sort of understandable, and it will sort of spill out on the streets. I'm just hoping, with what has been announced, relaxation in age, some of this anger, sort of gets dissipated. So while yes, there is anger, there is some genuine sort of feeling of having been let down. But now that the recruitment process has completely changed, I do not know, and I don't think they can actually be recruited under the old scheme. If you ask me, Barkha, what is my major concern? My major concern, frankly, is firstly, this unnecessary violence must stop. I mean, I don't think anybody can sort of condone this, and hopefully, some of the anger that I said will get dissipated through various announcements that are being made. My concern really is not whether people are angry or anything. My concern is is it going to impact the operational effectiveness of the armed forces? And that to me is the key. Whatever measures we are taking, are they in any way going to impact on our operational readiness, on our operational effectiveness?
And what do you say? Is it? And what is your
So,
concern?
see, so as I said, my concern is this, the operational ethos, levels of morale and motivation. Now, this may be my sort of concern, Barkha, but you also have the three service chiefs who have come out and said, look, these are challenges that we can handle. These are challenges that we will be able to meet. My only suggestion is I wish there had been a little trial period to actually assess what impact this had. Then, my concerns, my fears, somebody else's concerns, fears, I think would have probably got addressed.
Yeah. Let me bring in General Kulkarni before I open it up for the others. General Kulkarni, General Vinod Bhatia, the former Director General of Military Operations, he has argued, he's very against Agnipath, and he said he believes that the entire ethos, the sort of Paltan spirit, the combat effectiveness will all be hurt. But he had a suggestion. And his suggestion was that 2022 should strictly be treated as a pilot project year. That we should not actually say that this Agnipath is here to stay in this form, irrevocable, unchangeable. Let's test it. Let's try it. Let's modify it as needed. Let this not be, oh, this is now how our soldiers will, and airmen and sailors will be recruited for all times to come. General Kulkarni, what do you think?
Barkha, thank you very much for inviting me. At the very outset, let me tell you that we as veterans who put in almost 40 years of service in the army have concerns, and we have raised apprehensions, and we seem to be, of course, none of us were consulted on these issues, and rightly so. But the uniformed body, have been mulling over it, debating it, presentations on presentations, working on it for the last about 2.5 years. So they know exactly as to what are the challenges, what will be the apprehensions. There have been no recruitment has taken place in the last 2 years. They know what's going on. So they have actually addressed all these challenges. They've tried to do as much as they can. Now, coming to the point whether we would be able to, that dedication, commitment, the ethos, and the way we all work for Naam, Namak, Nishan, whether that would be there or not. I think to begin with, all these aspects, whether it's regimentation or the training part is concerned, have been thought about. Because 9 months training, and you brought the boy to become a sepoy in the earlier district, and now in the Agnipath, they are 6 months training in the regimental centers, and then they come to the battalions, and they are there about 3.5 years. And the 6 month training is intensive training. Obviously, the intake is much more sharper, number one. Number two, the kind of training aids that are available and the simulators that are available and what we've gone through, and we know exactly what is irrelevant and what is relevant, and repetitiveness of it, and the acceptance and the kind of IQ of these boys and girls who are going to come in. Because now 46,000 are going to be coming to a competitive exam. There's an exam which will be held. And once they've cleared that exam, the second step is the physical. And the third is the medical. So these are three aspects which are there. So earlier, if it could have been first the physical, and those who cleared the physical went in for the written, and then they went in for the medical. Now it's clear cut. It's all India, all class. It's not recruitable male population. It's all India, all class. So everybody and anyone. But the regimentation doesn't get affected. On an average, even if 46,000 people have to come in, you have not more than about 30 to 40 people coming in an infantry battalion. And out of them, 10 will be absorbed. There are two pillars of this. As regards the armed forces are concerned, let there not be any doubt in anyone's mind that they will not be able to cope up. Of course, there will be pressures on the commanding officers, there will be pressures on the centers, but it will be handled. And even if it was, supposing, let's put it as normal, that we wanted a pilot project, as what people say that a pilot project would have done. Now, if you had a pilot project, if this entire thing is a pilot project, then it will not succeed. It's of course a work in progress. So you have, should there be a requirement?
Why would it not succeed if it were a pilot project? Just to understand,
now,
why do you say that?
Yeah. So, Barkha, what happens as a pilot project? Supposing you do have a pilot, that means the normal recruitment is also on, and then you have Agniveers also on. You will never ever succeed. It has to be, you have to break away. Agnipath is a standalone scheme. The Agniveers are not ex-servicemen. Let's be very clear. That is why they're there for 4 years. Otherwise, they would have been there for 5 years. 4 years means they're not ex-servicemen. They're Agniveers. They become a sepoy after 6 months of their rejoining, because all of them are released. And thereafter, once they become sepoys and work, then they become ex-servicemen. So there is no ex-service. That is why you said in the beginning that even though there's a 10% quota reservation now for Agniveers, which is over and above the quota for the ex-servicemen. So that's a totally different thing. So that if you now have pilot projects,
you believe that change had to be in a sense going for the jugular, because anything incremental which took place alongside recruitment for, as it has been taking place for full-time service, then would have sent mixed messaging. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, Barkha, let's say for the next 4 years, whether an Agniveer, it doesn't really matter to him. Supposing in the 4th year, whoever it is decides, no, all of them are absorbed, then so it's a question, it's a thing which is on. They have been trained. And when they come into the battalion, whether they come as 30 people every year, 40 people every year, it doesn't matter. It is only the 5th year. So how these boys or girls are going to be reacting to this new scheme, I don't think. Seeing the kind of youth profile that we have, seeing the demographic dividend and the tech savviness of the people, of the boys and girls is concerned, I think this scheme will be acceptable. And it's just a question of mindset. Mindset, because as a veteran, I seem to feel that, well, whatever I have done, it seems to be right. It cannot be changed. I can tell you a very simple example. When we joined the army, we were all wearing full sleeve shirts. And it was absolutely considered acceptable full sleeve shirt. When it became half sleeve, everybody said, "Ye kya blouse pehna diya, aise ho gaya, machhar katta tha, ye nahi tha, night ko hota tha." Now, if you were to tell anybody wear a full sleeve shirt, now you'll say, no, the half sleeve shirt is so much better.
I get the point you're making. I get the point you're making about resistance to change, but this is not quite the same thing. There are desperate, anguished, and yes, completely incorrectly violent young people on the street. I also take the point, Brigadier Gupta, that the military is not meant to be an employment exchange. I take that point. I understand it. But I am concerned about what other veterans have described as the intangibles. Everybody knows a soldier's loyalty is first to her or his, and in this case, the women will only come into this progressively, to his pulton. The idea of integrating those who are simply passing through as contract employees, will this not diminish to some extent the izzat, the romance of the uniform, the honor of the uniform? Are we not diminishing the soldier in some ways, Brigadier Gupta? It's not all about pensions and pay slips, and
Barkha,
those things matter, but it's not all about that.
Barkha, my big answer is no. Now I'll justify what I'm saying. Firstly, we're talking of ethos being affected because it's only a 4-year tenure. Let's take example of NDA. We stay there for 3 years, and at the end of 3 years, every ex-NDA dies for his squadron. How does that ethos and squadron spirit emerge in 3 years, which cannot emerge in these Agniveers in 4 years? That is one. 65 and 71 war, we won with 5-year color service. Wasn't the ethos and morale high at that time? Didn't the soldier fight for the country? Didn't they lay down their lives for the country? So if it can happen in 65, 71, why can't it happen now? And after 71, we are not fought a war. Only war we fought was Kargil, and the Kargil committee recommended that the age profile be lowered. So that means our present system had a flaw, which needed to be corrected. And the government has taken a step. Secondly, as General Kulkarni rightly said, how many people are going to come? 10 to 40, 10 to 30 people in a unit of 800? Can't they be accommodated? Can't they be trained? It is happening even today also. I commanded the RR battalion as well, from infantry battalion. We have a 25% turnover every year in a RR battalion. Still the RR battalions are functional. And when the RR battalions were raised, some of our senior officers said it's a riffraff force. Is it? Today, see, the RR battalion is to be envied with. So, as you rightly said, the resistance change. Now, my last point is that what General Huda was saying, 75-25, it is 50-50. Decision has been taken. It is going to be 50-50. Now, the next thing is...
It's going to be 50-50 in 10 years. Please correct me if I'm wrong. 50-50 in 10 years, but at some point it will be 100%, right?
No. Yes, but 50...
At some point, soldiers, in 10 years, 50-50, and at some point, full time. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Okay, how am I wrong? Okay, tell me. Please correct me
50% will be Agniveers. 50% will be Agniveers who have graded to
in
the
10 years,
regular soldier.
In 10 years.
Yes. 50% will be Agniveers. Then it will still be coming after 4 years. And 50% will be those comprising of those 25% who have been absorbed.
Who have been re-enlisted.
Yes, who have been re-enlisted. Yes. So they have an experience. They are the continuity is there. That's how it's going to be. Now, Barkha, I must say, there's violence. Do you think these people are fit to be soldiers? This is what they want to serve the nation. They're destroying the nation. And today, they're agitating because the terms and condition of service enrollment have been changed. Tomorrow, same people, if they've been enrolled, after 4 years, they would create mayhem on the road streets and say that we don't want to go back. I think such people do not or are not fit to serve the nation. And I think most of them actually are not the real serious candidates for the services. They are hired goons, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, you believe the men on the street, and they're all men who are violent, are not fit to be soldiers. They might even be goons for hire. But there are also a lot of young people who've been writing into us saying, please help us, please help us. We passed all the exams. We're absolutely shocked. We sat for these exams. We cleared them. They're just writing letters. They're not on the streets burning trains and cars.
Their issues have been addressed.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Let's just get the others in. Manvendra, you've of course, you're a politician. You've been with the territorial army. You have a personal association with the military. What concerns you and what worries you the most right now?
I think the biggest concern for me right now is what Brigadier Gupta just said, that these are all hired hooligans. The fact that if anybody in this country can hire such a large number of hooligans, then obviously the system of governance in this country is flawed and it's failed, because your basic intelligence system of any police thana should have informed the state government that there's somebody hiring hooligans that are large, in such large volumes. And if these can be hired, then God forbid, what this country is headed towards. I mean, I'm just going by, this statement of Brigadier Gupta and to claim that, a state
Let's come to the policy. Let's come to the policy
to such an extent.
Yeah, let's come to the policy itself. Yeah. The
policy of Agniveer, I think it's just plain flawed. It's plainly flawed. It's unworkable. It's against the, against the grain of the battalion. And you can't have two categories of people serving in the same battalion. Simple as that. It doesn't matter how many number there are, but you can't have two categories in the same. I mean, my TA battalion gave soldiers to a particular RR unit because of the same regimental affiliation, and it was only for a short period of time because it couldn't work in the long run. So these things, two systems of working together amongst the jawans is not workable. Officer system works to a point and doesn't work beyond that.
I mean, I was just going to say there've been short service commissioned officers, so and that will be the obvious counter to what you're saying.
Yeah, but the officer contract is very different than the service contract. In this case, the officer who leaves after a short service retains his or her benefits of being an ex-serviceman. Agniveers will not get the benefits of being an ex-serviceman. And besides the larger debate of 4 years and the differential in contract, if you look at the fine print, while serving in the next 4 years, each Agniveer, so-called Agniveer, is going to get 30 days of annual leave in a year. He's eligible only for 30 days of leave in a year, whereas a regular serving soldier, his CHM or even his company mate is eligible for 90 days of leave, and sick leave is only depending on whatever the medical RMO decides. This categorization is unworkable in our system.
Okay, let me get Captain Shalini Singh to add her thoughts, and then I'll take the points that you've all made back to General Huda, General Kulkarni. Shalini, go ahead.
I was hearing to everybody, so all regards to everyone. What I will be presenting is completely the thought process and whatever I'm seeing from past 2-3 days. We say that defense forces is not for employment scheme. I completely agree, but all of us sitting here, when we join, are we ready to give up our pension today to give support to the youth who are on the streets? I'm not saying violence is okay. Today we are in a kind of civil war where our own youth is burning trains, protesting on the streets, getting hit by police. So this is not okay. And if you are wanting to roll out something, I'm not saying that we should not try new things. You tried new things. That is why ladies were commissioned into the army. You tried new thing, and that is why we could get permanent commission. But your short service commission for lady officers did not go well, and that is why they went to court and asked for permanent commission. Now here we are talking of not the urban people, not the youth who is going to become officers. We are talking about the youth who are wanting to serve the country, but do all come with that kind of jazba and that kind of josh that they just want to serve the country? No, many of them, they see an employment opportunity, a financial security for them and for their family, that even if they are no more, their family is going to be taken care of. So these are the things which they have in their mind, and today you roll out something just to impress God knows whom, to make headlines, without testing it, without doing a pilot project, and being said that a pilot project can't be done along with the current recruitment scheme. I don't agree to it. Why can't it be? You should have tried. You can't just put a blanket rule and say that now everybody has to follow this. As you yourself said, Barkha, that you are getting lots of requests from people. Even I am getting lot of mails and messages from children who have prepared, who have given the exam, who were preparing for past 2-3 years. So they are just stuck, and then you are rotating every.
But you raise a good point about the induction of women, which has been an incremental set of changes, right? Even for those of us who wanted changes at a faster pace, I think it's an interesting model. It was calibrated. It slowly opened up. You always had women in medicine, and then you had women in more and more roles, flying, being chopper pilots, flying fighter jets, being then allowed and enabled to land their planes on aircraft carriers and so on. Infantry still remains combat rather, that has not happened. The fact is, General Huda, I found what Shalini was saying about women interesting, because change was incremental there. And I think that's the point that many of us are making, that yes, perhaps the military needed to be leaner, more tech savvy, modernized. Perhaps we needed to relook this sort of recruitment that has been based on caste groups or regions. All of those are valid questions. But why disruption? Or as the cliche goes, Why fix something when it ain't broken? General Huda.
Yeah, Barkha, I agree with you. This has been a very, very sort of significant and major change. And I am firmly of the opinion that there should have been a test bed. It should have been tested out. Now, I know you could say, well, you can't have both the systems working. Have one system working. If you want to only enroll Agniveers, please do the enrollment of only Agniveers. But say for the next three, I feel it should go on for even a longer period to actually test out how these people work in units and see, and then say, right, this is a test bed that we've done. This is what we have found. And these are, the things that we need to change. And if there is a requirement to make major changes, let's make major changes. I mean, I accept, I have one viewpoint about how it could impact. Brigadier Gupta has another viewpoint of how it could impact. We really don't know, because it's such a major change, honestly, for any of us to accurately assess and say, these challenges will easily be overcome. I'm not sure, Barkha, and that is why I'm a firm sort of the opinion that we need a test bed, and we need to test it out. We need to look at the long-term view. To say that we have only 20 to 30 people coming into infantry battalions, ultimately we know at the end of 10 years, there's not going to be 30, it's going to be 400 and 400.
Yeah.
That's the numbers that we are going to talk about.
Yeah.
The recruitment pool is the same, Barkha, to say suddenly we will start getting very tech-savvy people. I don't know where are they going to come from. I mean, we are recruiting from the same pool of people. So I think we need to take a long-term view, be a little flexible about, the implementation of this policy. Test it out, check it out, and be open to change. Barkha.
Yeah. Before I come to General Kulkarni, Manvendra, as a critic of the policy, if there's one thing you had to identify, is it the economic and social security of the Jawan, or is it the operating capacity of the military, or is it the honor and the value of the uniform?
The honor and value of the uniform. That's the most critical thing, and that's been demeaned. And the whole, the whole process is obviously flawed, because you can't have done your homework, as General Kulkarni says, and then have to make concessions. Obviously, it's not been thought out. And whoever's made this policy, that person is not from the uniform, certainly, because anybody who's been in uniform will never make a policy like this, which demeans the bond within the uniform.
Strong words, General Kulkarni. Do you want to take that? General Kulkarni, sir?
Yeah. Now, at the outset, I must tell you, there are certain pillars which will make the success of this policy. First and foremost, the success of this policy lies in ensuring that the combat capability is not compromised, not reduced, it enhances. If that is ensured, probably the policy is a success. The second part of the thing is that how do we see and how do we rehabilitate those 75% people who are not going to become sepoys? The 25% in any case is not a problem, because they're going to get absorbed. So the next part is the training part, and how do we motivate them, and how that is left to the armed forces. So what the armed forces can do, they will do. There is no denying the fact the armed forces will do exactly, and they will ensure that the people who are there with them will come up to the expectation. Now is the government which is supposed to ensure rehabilitation of the 75%. In that process, probably the things that just about started rolling in, and the entire policy is a work in progress, because even the cabinet committee has empowered the Raksha Mantri to bring in any changes if they are required as the thing goes, as long as the policy does not affect operational capability, like you said. It will not. Definitely it will not. Let's take for the next 4 years. Let's take for 4 years at least. Now, anybody and everybody, whether they were coming as normal recruitment earlier or they are coming as Agniveers, they would be the same, because the training of 6 months is adequate. I would put it this way, it's adequate. After that, when they've come, they'll have another month or maybe even 2 months of orientation training within the battalion, and then they go in for. At any point of time, today in the battalion, the bayonet strength was so little. Everybody was almost a rank holder, last night, Havaldars, JCOs, and all. You have a sizable number of people available to you for work. And as what you all rightly said, after 10 to 12 years, we may have about approximately 350 Agniveers vis-a-vis the rest of the strength of the battalion. So that's okay, perfectly fine. I don't see it as that, because we have enough time to see how the system will work, how the boys or girls who are going to come in react, How do they
Okay.
work? Is there a lack of dedication,
I of
commitment?
course, yeah, I of course hope for the sake of our country and our military that you are absolutely correct, General Kulkarni. But I want to bring in Brigadier Gupta. Here's my question. General Kulkarni said that you can't have two kinds of recruitment taking place in parallel. Manvendra Singh says you can't have two different categories of recruits among the jawans. So two very different views. I have a simpler question. Why not just announce that 2022 is something we're trying? If it doesn't work, we'll take it back. Because the point is that you cannot present this as written in stone. It's too big a change, and it came without any forewarning. I heard one of the chiefs talk about
Barkha,
how they've been discussing this for months, but the possible recruits had no idea.
Barkha, you are echoing the words of my dear friend and my co-mate Vinod Bhatia.
Yes.
But I must tell you what General Huda said. Why 1 year? Why not 4 years? Now, you yourself brought out the point that induction of the females or the ladies into the army was incremental. Isn't 30 to 310 is incremental? This is exactly is being done. And as what General Kulkarni has said, I want to highlight that point since he has said it already. But point is the Raksha Mantri has been empowered by the government to make any changes anytime without getting back to the government whenever he feels that this policy needs certain amendments. So this is a great concession which has been given to the Raksha Mantri, power given to the Raksha Mantri by the government. So this means that this is a trial, it's a test bed. Call it any this thing. The government also knows the necessity. Two systems cannot go together. I fully agree with the General Kulkarni because if there are two systems, if you are given an option, why should you not go for pension job? Why should you go for only 4-year job? Very few will go for that. So
Can I ask you another question? Major
just
Navdeep, to you only the question, Brigadier Gupta.
Okay.
Major Navdeep, whom some of you would know as a lawyer soldier, has done some numbers, and he told me, again, I'm not the expert on this, that if the term had been even 5 years, the Jawans would have got gratuity. They would have got gratuity. That at least that could have been done. He also spoke about a Coast Guard template of national service pension model that could have been followed for 10-year stints. So the point is that, of course, though, as Manvendra says, this is much more about the honor of the uniform and the operational capacity. In the end, for men coming from some of our poorest sections, that economic security matters, Brigadier Gupta.
Yes, it does. And for that, the government has catered for. While in service, 45 lakhs non-contributory life insurance. In case of unfortunate death, 45 lakhs to the family. And for the balance tenure of the soldier who's killed in action, the complete salary will be paid. Okay, this is how it's taken care of. At the retirement time, now see, what is he going to get? Apart from his salary, which is about 4.72 lakhs per year and cumulatively over to 11.72 lakhs at the end of 4 years, he is getting free rations, free clothing, all hazard allowance, free travel allowance, all these things. That means that out of 11 lakhs which he earns, he can save up to 5 to 6 lakhs. 11.71 lakhs is getting a nidhi. So totally a kitty of about 60 to 17 lakhs in the hands of a boy who's 25 years old. And to my mind, he can become a rural enterprise. This is we used to going to have startups in the villages. This is where you have ready-made capital available. And the government also gives just listen, please. The government also gives the option of higher studies and absorption to government jobs. For absorption to government jobs, that's just a slew of measures they've announced, which you're aware of. For higher studies, 12th class certificate, those who have gone after 10, then 50% credit marks for skill, which is as per required as the new education policy for graduation. And also the graduation will be free of cost at the government expense. So this is for higher education. Now another issue was raised off, just a minute, I've noted a point. How will tech-savvy people come? Huda sir, tech-savvy people come because there are direct recruitment rallies to be held in the industrial training institutes. There are about 500 of them in the country, from where they'll be picked up trade-wise. If you require vehicle mechanics, you require electricians, you require radar mechanics, whatever you require from these ITIs, they'll be directly recruited.
Okay, let me bring in Shalini now, and then we'll go around for last comments. Captain Shalini, go ahead, please.
Brigadier Gupta, see, he said that the youth which is on the road, they are all gundas and they are not fit to be part of the forces. And I completely agree, not supporting violence at all. But why are they on streets today? Why are they burning trains? Why are they protesting? Who has made them do that? Many of them, majority of them are students. They were studying, they were preparing for a career. They had seen a life ahead of them that okay, we'll get into the forces and we'll serve for next 20 years, next 30 years. And today they are burning trains on and they are standing on road. Why? Who is responsible for this? Are we responsible? The government who has rolled out the policy. Now, after rolling out the policy, every 2 hours they are making a reform. Every 3 hours they are coming up with, okay, now this relaxation is there, now you will get this, now you will get that. Why not completely do a detailed study? Why not do a deep analysis of this and then roll out the project? Nobody is stopping not to reform, not to introduce something new, not to modernize the defense forces, not to give a good option to the youth. Everything is welcome, but not like this. The way they have rolled it out, the way they are now they are trying to label all the youth as gundas, and as we see, they all look like gundas. But we did not. This country did not had so many gundas 3 days back. Why suddenly? In past 3 days, we are seeing so many gundas all over the country, 16 states, trains being burnt. Everything is like this country is looking like.
And may I just say that this absence of or this rupture in social cohesion is a security issue, not just a law and order one,
Yeah,
an internal security issue which we need to acknowledge, and that can't be.
yeah. And
Sorry,
nobody,
complete your point. Shari, I want to go to Manvendra after that. Yeah.
I just want to understand as a citizen of this country, who is going to responsible for the youth who are doing such kind of acts? Somebody has to take the
Okay.
responsibility.
Let me just. Sorry, I got your point. Let me just take this to Manvendra. The counter would be the military cannot carry the cross for providing employment. That cannot be the military's job. Manvendra, last thoughts?
Yeah, my last thought is really, you have to have reforms. I don't deny you have to have changes. Army has always been evolving over centuries of its, functioning and its existence. But all at least in the current days, when you have the capability, all your reform and all your changes should be driven by a proper threat perception analysis. It can't be based on some Vedic economist writing some figures about pension and pension eating into modernization. That gives the country a very poor sort of message that is armed forces are dispensable. The soldier is dispensable. The machinery is more important.
General Kulkarni, last thoughts? General Kulkarni, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah. Now,
Yeah, go ahead.
see, as I said to begin with, this particular scheme is a great success for two simple reasons. Firstly, you get a very young youth profile. That's one. Secondly, it's a thing which had been in requirement in most battalions. It's not necessarily. There are people who wouldn't want to do promotion cadres. They wouldn't want to go up, but at the same time are just whiling away their time to 15 years to earn a pension. There would be a sizable number of this in every battalion. Now there's an option that is available. And in any case, after 4 years, once the boy leaves or the girl leaves, you have another sizable commitment by the government for rehabilitation. And once that commitment for rehabilitation is there, I don't visualize, probably the thing there's some miscommunication which has happened with these children. They don't seem to know as to what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages. There are no disadvantages. Now, if you look at it, now let's take my own case. I joined the army as a short service officer for 5 years. Having served for 5 years, I was on Siachen. I didn't know I was to get a permanent commission or anything. I didn't go on Siachen just because I was to get permanent commission. I didn't know what it is. I retired as a lieutenant general. What's wrong with it? Everything. I don't see there's anything wrong in anything. The question is, a person who's joining the services is joining because he loves to join the service. And yes, at the same time, in the same breath, I will say he must be able to take care of his family. There is no denying the fact. That's a very essential part of the entire thing. But if that is what is driving him, then the 25% are those who are definitely serving the nation. At the same time, they're being looked after. The 75%, they will be looked after. They've served the nation and they will be looked after. That assurance by the government, and it's not just assurance, but ensuring it.
Okay.
Implementation of that assurance will ensure that this scheme is a success.
I hope you're right, but I have to close with the last word to General Huda. Questions have also been raised whether soldiers make a natural transition, as it were, to the CAPF and Assam Rifles. If you look at the numbers, there are already more vacancies than there should be in these forces, and nobody knows why, because there's actually a 10% quota for ex-servicemen. Obviously, this has not quite worked as smoothly as it ought to have. As another officer said to me, Riley, the other day, we still see our servicemen end up as ATM guards, and that's the sad truth. I mean, I'm not taking away from the dignity of that job, but that, it's not that they have naturally progressed to something in the security forces. General Huda, your last thoughts?
So, Barkha, just 2 quick points. One is this issue of rehabilitation, which is important, but I think if you ask me as a military officer, not a priority as far as I'm concerned. It's something that the government needs to do, and I'm sure they're working through it. To me, as a military officer who spent 40 plus 4 years in uniform, to me the issue is the operational effectiveness, operational capability, and ethos going to get impacted by this scheme. I'm glad to hear, as Brigadier Gupta has brought out, that if there is enough flexibility to make major changes as we go along, that would be good. But I think we should not underplay the challenges and say, look, everything is fine, everything will become okay. Let's understand the challenges, and where we require to make changes, let's make the changes. That's it, Barkha.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, this has to be a work in progress. That's something we can all, I think, agree on. Brigadier Gupta, you are raising your hand to make a last line quickly, sir. I have to close very quickly, okay, please. Yes.
I have 2-3 points. One from my friend Manvinder. He said that civilians had drafted this policy. The naval chief is on record to say that 2 years as a vice chief was involved in planning, drafting, and everything of this scheme. So it's not purely by the civilians. Secondly, he's talked of the operational efficiency. See, once this trained pool goes back, you have so much of reserve in case of a national emergency, they all can be called back. You can almost raise 2 to 3 divisions with this force when required. So it is increasing the operational efficiency of the armed forces and not decreasing it. And lastly, where have all these goons come from last three weeks? They are the result of the last 3 days agitational politics toolkit started by Aam Aadmi Party.
Okay, I will then have to give Shalini a right of response, and Manvendra. I was trying to keep party politics away from this. In fact, the three of you are here because of your association with the military. But Shalini, if we can leave the tutu meme of politics quickly, if you want a last word,
So definitely, I would like to say that this should not be made as any political agitation or any political party is doing, like telling the youth to go on streets like this. Even I know a lot of serving officers who are not able to come openly and say that this is not the rightly thoughtful scheme.
Okay.
So there is no harm, and it is my humble appeal that one should take it back, not blame Aam Aadmi Party or Congress or TMC or any XYZ party because they are in the opposition. You have brought something out, so you should be able to defend it. And if you're not able to defend it, you can't blame the opposition for that. So it's complete.
Yeah, got your point, Manvendra.
Sonia Gandhi today has issued an appeal for education.
So I don't want to discuss party politics. Party politics for some other program. This is about the military. I just want a quick word to Manvendra on Brigadier Gupta's point that the chiefs have fronted this. They've gone out and batted for it. They've defended it. So when you say that this is made up by a civilian, you have to acknowledge the fact that Brigadier Gupta said that the chiefs are out there fronting this policy. Manvendra.
No, I'm sure they're fronting the policy, but then obviously, there's something wrong in their staff system that if the chiefs are not dependent on so many concessions being announced every other hour, obviously somebody hasn't done the homework. So if the chiefs are fronting this policy, and if they're the ones who've done the homework for 2 years, then why have concessions? I mean,
okay, the jury is out.
They're simply inadequate.
Yeah. The jury is out. You can see the 3 politicians differing, but even the 2 generals have very differing perspectives. And that, to me, brings home the fact that this cannot be the last word on the Agnipath policy. At the very least, it needs to evolve. It's not officially being called a test bed, but I think there's an acknowledgement that it is being tested. It's just being tested in real time. Many would have hoped that it could have been done differently, but there are differing opinions on that. We'll keep a close eye on this critical national security story, one that concerns literally, I think, the most respected institution in this country, India's military. Thank you, Generals Kulkarni and Huda, and to Manvendra, Shalini, and Brigadier Gupta. Thank you, and to our audience, have a great evening. See you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work.
If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.